All right, developing systems. Now, this isn't a particularly sexy topic. It's kind of nuts and bolts, but from somebody who's practiced for 40 years, let me tell you, this is really important. I remember my third year of law school, I clerked for a local lawyer. He was a single practitioner, and he was one of these save the world guys. Nothing wrong with that. He didn't want to be wealthy, didn't want to be rich, didn't want to be famous. He wanted to help people. Good for him. But I remember talking to him, and he had come from a larger practice, and he would have this litany where he would go into how they set up their file system and how funny it was that they're only concerned about a red tab can't be near a blue tab, can't be near your gear tab, and he thought it was really funny. But his office was an absolute disaster. You could never find a file. There was no control systems over time limits. Time limits were missed all the time. He didn't know how to contact his clients. It was a disaster. And I saw this and I thought, wow, this is something I need to learn how to do. So I want to talk to you just about a couple of things that I think you want to keep in mind when you get into your practice. And this doesn't matter if you're a sole practitioner, a large firm. All the large firms probably already have their systems in place. You need your own personal systems. It just makes your practice so much easier. First, you need time management, okay? You're going to be busy. Lawyers today are really busy, and you're going to have a lot of files on your desk. And some are urgent, some are not urgent, some are new cases, some are old cases. And if you just have everything piled on your desk and you go into work and you just kind of plow away at that pile, you're going to get yourself in trouble. You need to take some time to set up a system to process these cases as they come in. Now, I can give you what I do. You don't have to do it this way, but you need some system. So I have a system where it's old cases, new cases, pending cases, and then urgent cases. Because you can't take these cases and work on them as they come in, because as you're doing that, if something comes in that's urgent, obviously it goes to the front of the line. So I try to have everything organized by, is it an old case? Is it a brand new case? Is it something that's pending right now? Or is it something that needs my immediate attention? And every morning before I start my day, I go through each of these categories to familiarize myself with kind of the lay of the land, if you would, of all of the caseload and how it works out and how I'm going to be planning my day. How you do that is completely up to you. Old school, new school, it doesn't matter as long as you're organized in your brain as to what cases you're working on. Putting things off is a huge mistake, and it's a tendency when you have a lot to do. You get something new. For example, let's say you're very busy on something and something new comes in, and the tendency is, well, I can't really work on this because this case over here came in before that. I'll work on that later. I'll think about it later. You probably won't. Okay, you need to deal with that as it comes in. Now, it may come in, and you may look at it and say, this really isn't urgent. It's going to go over here with pending. But you can't just throw things off to the side saying, I'll deal with this later, because you probably won't. And it could lead to problems. It could lead to malpractice. Don't do it. I also take a portion of my day to return phone calls and emails. That's a sacrosanct part of my day that I never, ever, ever miss. So, and you're going to have days where, you're there at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning and you're really crushing it, and you look up and it's 7:30 at night and there's a whole bunch of these pink slips, or however you get your phone calls, as they were coming in, and you were like, I'm too busy, I can't return phone calls. The next day that pile's going to get bigger. That's a huge mistake. I'm talking about maybe a half an hour, maybe 20 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, depending on how many calls you got. Every day I'm going to do that. And what that means is those calls are returned promptly. It's a good habit to get into. Now, there are a lot of time management and office administrative apps out there. I'm not going to suggest any one, but they're out there, and they can be very helpful depending on what kind of practice you have that really automates what I'm talking about now. The other thing you absolutely, positively must have is some sort of a diary system. What's a diary system? It means that deadlines, court appearances, that kind of thing is entered into the system so that you're notified, you're flagged, that something's coming up, something needs to be filed, or you have a court appearance. Boy, if you don't do this, it's gonna be disaster. It's gonna blow up in your face. There's no way around it. As lawyers, we have deadlines, lots of deadlines. Things have to be filed by a certain time. You have to be in court on a certain date. You have to be prepared for that court appearance. And if you just think, well, I'll remember it, right? No, you won't. You have a lot of work. You need a system. Now, in the old days, we used index cards. We called it a tickler system or a diary system, and you'd have a box and every day for the entire year, and you'd put an index card, where it need, say you have a brief is due on a certain date. You would have brief due 90 days, brief due 60 days, brief due 30 days, brief due 15 days. And every day you would check all the index cards for that. And you could do it that way. I use the Google system. I use the task system in Google. You can do it any way. It really doesn't matter. Whatever works best for you. And every day you're checking that. Again, you will come into your office. That should be one of the things you're doing. Check my diary system. And it will remind you, maybe you have a meeting, or you have some kind of court appearance, or you have something that's due in the court. You're not finding out like, oh my God, it's due tomorrow. And some lawyers end up that way. They just kind of throw something together, and that's no way to practice law. Make sure that your system, whatever it is double entry, so that you're being diaried yourself, and your assistant is being diaried. So there's a double system here, so that if one fails, the other one is not. So you have, say you have a brief due, or some responding papers for a motion, or whatever it is, you come in and you check your diary system for that day. Oh, this is coming up in 30 days. I need to work on this today. Your assistant comes in, here's your diary entries for today. And so if something goes wrong at your end, you're going to have something to back that up. So these are just some of the things. There's lots of things that you need to automate in your system so that you can be efficient. These are just a couple of ideas.